Hello students. So in this video we will discuss the remaining aspects of root, their functions of roots, regions of root and modifications of roots. Okay, these three aspects we will discuss in this video. Okay, what are the functions of roots? Okay, you know that the plants are fixed at one place. They do not move from place to place. How come they are fixed at one place? It is done by the root system. So that's why the first function is what? Fixation or anchorage of the plant in the soil. That is the first function. And the second function, what it is doing? It absorbs water and minerals from the soil. So absorption of water and minerals from the soil is the second function of the root. And the third function, what it will do with that absorbed water and minerals? Will it use it? Of course, it uses, but actually, the water and the minerals which are absorbed by the root will be conducted, means what transported to shoot system. Okay, that is the third function, conduction of water and minerals to shoot. Okay, and the fourth function. Of course, remember one thing that roots cannot prepare their own food material, and the food is prepared by the shoot system, and the shoot system will okay transfer this food material to the root system, and always the shoot system will transfer not the required amount of food, excess amount of food, and what the roots will do, they will store that food material for future use. Okay, so that is the fourth function, storage of food materials. And the fifth function is synthesis of hormones. Synthesis of hormones. So remember that root system is a living system and it is growing just like the shoot system. And for its growth, some hormones are required, and it won't depend on the shoot system for these hormones. So, what are those hormones? Auxins and cytokinins. So, that is the fifth function of the root. So, these are the functions of roots. And now, let us go for this regions of root. Regions of root. So, now let us discuss about the regions of root. Every root at its tip will show us four regions. Okay, one is root cap region, second is meristematic region, third is elongation region, and the fourth is maturation region. Okay, every root. What does it mean by every root? So we know that in taproot system, you will find a main root and we call it as taproot. And it produces primary branches which are called lateral roots. Lateral roots in turn produce branches called sublateral roots. Sublateral roots in turn produce branches called rootlets. So all of them means what? Taproot, lateral root, sublateral root, and even rootlet. They will have the tips, and at their tips you will find these four regions. Not only that, we discussed already about different types of roots, like adventitious roots and fibrous roots. All of them too have these regions. I hope now you are understanding that every root will have these four regions, and where you find these four regions, okay, only at their tips. Because I drew one diagram here. This is what tip. This is tip. So this is what remaining part of the root. The root may be very long, but if you want to see these four regions, where we have to observe only at their tips. Okay. Now let us get into the details of these four regions. And know that at the tip you will find a tissue which helps the root to grow with a by cell division. So some cells are specialized here for cell division, and we call these cells as what? Meristematic cells. And these meristematic cells are tender cells, soft cells, and they require protection. That's why you will find a cap, a protective layer, and that is called what? Root cap or calyptra. Root cap or calyptra. So this root cap, it looks like a thimble or thimble-like structure. It is a thimble-like structure. Okay, generally the tailors will wear this thimble for their finger while going for hand stitching. They will to protect this finger. Okay, so they wear that thimble. Like that, a thimble-like structure is there protecting the meristematic region. And this root caps, remember that they are formed continuously. How can the root cap is formed continuously? Because you will find one tissue here, and that tissue is called calyptrogen tissue. And this calyptrogen tissue will go on produce this root cap. Because you see, while the root is moving through the crevices of the soil, okay, and this upper portion of the root cap may, okay, get removed, and it is replaced by new layers. So remember only that the root cap is formed layer after layer. While old layers are removed, new layers are replaced by these old, that means old layers are replaced by the new layers. So like that, root caps, but root caps are not present in all plants. So there are some exceptional cases, like what? Free floating hydrophytes. In free floating hydrophytes, let us take some common examples like Pistia. which is commonly called as water lettuce, and Iconia, which is commonly called as water hyacinth. I hope you heard this plant is called as popularly known as terror of Bengal. So in these plants, the root caps are absent, and in the place of root caps, you will find what root pockets, because they're floating freely in the water, and the roots are also in the water. So that's why they have root pockets instead of root caps. But of course, some plants like parasitic roots. I hope you heard about dodder plant or cuscuta, and that plant roots are called what? Hostoria. And also we come across with some mycorrhizae, and also some velamen roots. So in these root pockets are sorry, root caps are absent. Root caps are absent. Okay, so that is what is the function of this root cap protecting this meristematic tissue? Okay, and just above this region, the root cap region, you will find what meristematic region, or you can say that behind this root cap region, there is a meristematic region, and what is the function of this meristematic region? To produce new cells. So all these meristematic cells, they divide and add the cells in what direction? In upward direction. The cells are added in upward direction. And imagine when cells are added in upward direction, naturally the root will grow in downward direction. And these cells, okay, as they are pushed upwards, what they will do after they are pushed upwards? They will expand or enlarge in size, and as a result of which the length of the root will increase in this region, and that's why this region is called what? Elongation region. And you can see I have used a different color here, and the cells are also bigger cells than meristematic cells, because the meristematic cells are small cells with dense cytoplasm and prominent nucleus as they are dividing every time. So their nucleus is will be in what state? Interphase nucleus. Okay, and this is what elongation region. And now these elongated cells are further pushed up by the new batch of cells that are coming from the meristematic region. Because I hope you are understanding now, this is a continuous process. Means what? These meristematic cells continuously produce what? New cells, and these new cells will expand in this elongation region, and now one more batch will push these cells up in upward direction, and that region will become what? Maturation region. Let us say why this is called maturation region, because here the cells will mature. Means what? We call this maturation also as what? Differentiation. Some of the cells will differentiate into epidermal cells. Some of the cells will differentiate into epidermal cells, and some cells will differentiate into cortical cells, and some cells will differentiate into stellar cells. So in the stellar cells, again you will find so many other cells like what? Pericycle cells, and some will differentiate into xylem cells, some will differentiate to phloem cells. So I hope now you are understanding that the expanded cells in the elongation region, as soon as they come to this area, they will undergo differentiation to perform different functions. So here we will say in this maturation region, some epidermal cells, this is epidermis, okay, this is epidermis, and this is cortex, and this is the stele. So this is stele, this is cortex, and this is epidermis. And you can see some structures are here. So these structures are elongated epidermal cells. Some of epidermal cells will elongate and they form what? Root hairs. And for what purpose these root hairs are formed? So these root hairs will increase the area of absorption. Root hairs will increase the area of absorption. Okay, and this epidermis, of course, epidermis is okay, outermost layer and is present everywhere. Is what it is associated with the stem. There we call it as stem epidermis, and when it is present in the leaf, we call it as what? The leaf epidermis. But the epidermis of root only will have root hairs. That's why this zone is also called what? Piliferous region. Piliferous region. Or it is also called as epiblema. Epiblema. So like that, you will find what these four regions of the root. I hope you are getting my point, that where you will find these four regions of the root. So is it only present in the tap root, or present only in adventitious root? No. Every root will have these four regions, and where suppose if we want to see these four regions, where we have to observe the root, not all along the length of the root, only at the tip. So the four regions of the root are present at the tips of every root. Okay, just make a note of it. Okay, now let us discuss about root modifications. What is modification? Modification is a permanent change in the structure of an organ, a permanent change in the structure of an organ to perform a special function is called modification. Okay, what is modification? A permanent change, not temporary change, a permanent change in the structure of an organ to perform special function. Okay, let us say some of the root modifications, like what? Prop roots. So we are familiar with the plant banyan tree. So its scientific name is Ficus bengalensis. So don't forget that this is the national tree, and it is banyan tree. I hope all of you might have observed this tree, and from this tree you will find some structures hanging down. These are these hanging or propping down roots are called what? Prop roots. And from where they originating? They originate from the lower surface of the horizontal branches. They originate from the lower surface of horizontal branches and they grow downwards. Okay, positively geotropic. And remember, if I say that these prop roots will support these branches, so that becomes a joke because they are simply propping down. But these roots, once they establish in the ground, they become very strong. And once they become strong, we call them as what? Pillar roots. Pillar roots. And once they become strong, now they protect or they support these branches from breaking. So that's why this banyan tree can spread to some acres of land. Okay, so that is what a modification. But you have to remember that these prop roots are they tap roots or adventitious roots. Adventitious because they are not originating from the radicle, they have originated from the lower surface of the branch. And one point you have to remember, in banyan tree what roots are present? Immediately you will say prop roots, but you are forgetting the main root by which the tree is established is taproot. So now tell me, the banyan tree will have what roots? Tap roots as well as prop roots. Okay, now let us say the second modification, stilt roots. The examples for these stilt roots is what? Zea maize. That is the scientific name of maize plant. And one more example, saccharum. Saccharum officinarum, which is a sugarcane plant. So these plants will have weak stems and they have their stem is fixed in the ground with the help of adventitious roots or fibrous roots. These are fibrous roots. And they grow very tall, and that's why there is a chance of bending or they may break due to the winds. But the thing is that to give some strength from the lower nodes, from the lower nodes, okay, obliquely growing roots will develop around the node. That's why these stilt roots, as they are growing around the node like bracelet, they're also called what? Brace roots. And they pull this stem from in all directions and keep the stem straight. So that is what the stilt roots. So we can say here these prop roots and stilt roots, both of them are providing what to these plants? Mechanical strength. So that's why these two are mechanical roots. Mechanical roots. So that is prop roots and stilt roots are mechanical roots. Now let us come to this third modification, that is storage roots. Of course, we have already studied about the functions, and one of the functions is storage of food material. Here, we are not talking about that storage. So here, even after storing also, those roots, normal roots, do not change in their shape. But here, as food is stored in excess amount, you will find a change in the shape, and that's why the other name that is given for these roots is what? Tuberous roots. And of course, the best examples here are what? These are taproot modifications, storage taproots. and this is carrot, this is carrot, and this is radish, and this is beetroot. Okay, and you just remember the examples for storage taproots. Carrot, radish, and beetroot. Of course, remember even turnip. So, what is the scientific name of carrot? Darkers carota. That is carrot. And Raphanus sativus. Raphanus sativus. That is radish. Beta vulgaris. Beta vulgaris. That is beetroot. And also the shape of this taproot, and don't forget where the food is stored in the entire root system. No, only the taproot, that is main root, is storing food material, and these are lateral roots. Lateral roots. So here also lateral roots. But this taproot, as a result of storage, is acquiring a shape, and it is different in these three. And the shape of carrot root is what? Conical shaped. And in Raphanus sativus, it is fusiform or spindle shaped. And Beta vulgaris, we call this shape as what? Napiform or top shaped. Of course, in carrot and radish, the food material is stored in the form of starch. But in beetroot, the food is stored in the form of sugar, that is in the form of sucrose. Okay. But of course, we have some other plants like Ipomia batatas. Ipomia batatas, which is commonly called as sweet potato. Is a dicot plant. But as it propagates, in the previous video I told you that all vegetatively propagating dicots will have adventitious roots. In the same way, the Ipomia batatas, though dicot plant, it has adventitious roots, and at each node, that adventitious root will store food material. So at each node, you will find one storage root. But that doesn't mean that this plant will produce only one storage root. It is a runner, and it will have many nodes, and at every node you will find one storage root. So that means, suppose Ipomia potatoes plant is having 100 nodes. So how many sweet potatoes the plant will produce? 100. Okay, but at each node, how many storage roots you will find? Only one storage root. Okay, and the food material in this also starch. Starch is the food material. And of course, we have some other plants like asparagus. Asparagus, a monocot plant and belongs to Liliaceae family. Liliaceae family, and it has okay, a cluster of roots, and every root will store food material. So you will find a bunch of storage roots, and this bunch is also called what? Fascicle. That's why the roots in asparagus are called fasciculated roots. Fasciculated roots. Okay, even in asparagus, the food material is stored in the form of starch, but major amount is what? Water. So that's why asparagus is a succulent xerophyte, root succulent. Okay, these are all what about the storage roots or tuberous roots, and of course, you remember one thing that what for they are storing. They store food material for future use. And one point you have to remember: these carrot, radish, beetroot, these plants, whenever they are cultivated, the farmer will harvest them at the end of first season, not at the end of second season. What might be the reason? Because these plants, what they do is that they prepare food material and they store this food material in the roots, and in the second season they utilize this food material for production of flowers, fruits, and seeds. And if you allow them to use this food, you won't get this sized roots. That's why they are harvested at the end of first season. Okay, that is about the storage roots or tuberous roots. And now let us see the fourth one, pneumatophores. These pneumatophores are also called as respiratory roots or breathing roots. Okay, pneumatophores or respiratory roots or breathing roots. And generally, don't forget every root will respire, and for respiration, it will not depend on the shoot system, and it takes the oxygen on its own by diffusion from where? From the soil atmosphere. So the soil will have some spaces which are called interparticular spaces or pore spaces. The soil will have interparticular spaces or pore spaces, and these pore spaces are of two sizes, very small, and they are called micropore spaces, and the large ones are called what? Macropore spaces. And in micropore spaces, generally water is held, and whereas in the macropore spaces, air is held. So this indicates that even the soil will have air. That is called soil atmosphere. And generally, okay, the soil will provide aid for the roots, and that's why the roots of every plant will respire. But in certain areas, marshy lands, as water is stagnated, and because of which this air will come out. So that means even the macropore spaces are occupied by the water, and such marshy areas, all plants cannot survive. Only some plants with this modification, pneumatophores, will survive. And we call the plants which are growing in marshy areas as what? Mangroves. And some examples for the mangroves are Rhizophora, Avicennia, Rhizophora and Avicennia. And these plants, so you see here, this is the stem of this plant, and it has the taproot system, and it has, as usual, all these lateral roots, and the lateral roots, which are close to the surface, have produced some roots in upward direction. Okay, so these are not adventitious roots; these are the lateral roots or sublateral roots of lateral roots, and which are exposed, and now they are growing not in the regular direction, they are growing in upward direction. Okay, and these roots, they are provided with some pores, and which are called lenticels or nematodes. Lenticels are nematodes, and these lenticels or nematodes will help in okay, exchange of gases. So with the help of these nematophores, not only, don't think that only this root will get supply, and that is distributed among all other roots, as the nematophores are helping the entire root system to breathe or to respire. That's why they are called what, breathing roots or respiratory roots. So I hope you are understanding why only certain plants are able to survive in marshy areas, because they have this adaptation or they have this modification. That is what pneumatophores. Okay, that is about the root modification, and with that we have completed this topic, root.